First thing we're going to do is 1-point perspective just as a review. Remember that in perspective you always want to take the page, which is a two-dimensional space, and you want to begin the illusion of three-dimensional space. So the first line you place on the page is comparable to the horizon, so sky and earth. So the first technique we're working with is 1-point perspective. With 1-point perspective, you just establish a single point somewhere along the horizon line, which is called the vanishing point. And in 1-point perspective, whatever you're drawing, you can only see it from a flat side, which means if you're looking at any shape, you can only face the side. So if I'm looking at this eraser, really beat up eraser, I can only look at it from the side, this side, this side. So it has to be that you're looking directly into one of the flat planes of the object. So with 1-point perspective, you always begin with the shape that equals the side. So if I was thinking about that eraser, the shape I would begin with is a rectangle. So if the rectangle is the shape I'm working with in 1 point, you consider each of those corners as a point of origin, and you connect it back to that single vanishing point. So if I'm taking a line from each of those corners back to that vanishing point, then what I have is this illusion of a shape that's being extruded and sort of pulled back into that single point. So with 1-point perspective, since this is visual perspective, we're not drafting, you're basing this on your visual perception. I'd look at this shape, and if we're still using this sort of basic rectangle as our guide, I would come and say it's not, I'd travel along one of those y-axes and say it appears to end about right there. So all I did was make a point. That's the thickness I can see. In 1-point perspective, all of the horizontals and all of the verticals are parallel. So if I made a point here, it's equal to the front corner, which means I can draw a parallel line to this front, parallel, parallel, till it hits a diagonal line. I can draw a parallel line from this starting corner until it hits a diagonal. I can draw a parallel vertical till it hits that diagonal, and then I can draw a parallel horizontal between the two, and now I have a 6-sided plexiglass or glass kind of rectangular shape where I can see side 1, I can see that we'll just name the top side 2, I'll name the bottom side 3, 4, 5, and then the back would become 6. So I'm seeing all 6 sides. So I'm going to go through this process again one more time. Single vanishing point. Now I'll make it a taller shape. 1-point perspective always begins with a shape that's the flat side that you're looking at. Each of the corners of that shape become origin points. I'm going to go from those back to my single vanishing point. I'm freehanding. You could be using a ruler if that makes you more comfortable. And you'll notice if I use a ruler, you can see that my hand's a little off, but it's up to you. So if I roll it, I can do that. Once again, I'm going to make the decision based on optical perception, what I see. So if this is a box I'm looking at, I would go back until I say that's about the depth I see, make a single point. Once again, draw it across till it hits one of the diagonals, parallel. Drop it straight down, parallel. Drop it straight down, parallel. And hopefully, I'm looking to see, there's the intersection of the line with the ruler. So I bring it straight across. If it starts to get that all those lines are confusing, then I can grab a darker pencil and just strengthen the lines that were the lines I want. So I want that one, that one, that one. And then when I go through, in 1-point perspective, you could see where all of those lines are. If this was solid, after you've figured out what it looks like, then you'd erase the lines that wouldn't be visible because it would be solid. So I could make it open, for example, at the top by leaving that line. And now I see a solid that has the top off. I could create more illusion by adding shadow on the interior. And I could just, using a simple hatch line, pull another shadow on the exterior, the plane that's facing me, and then all of a sudden this illusion of three dimension is enhanced. So that's basic one-point perspective.